I said the policy number now. Return my card and log this. Do it, or I escalate right here, right now.
Bank lobby. Morning, hush. A teller leans back and says she will not serve people like her. Heads turn. The woman across the counter does not raise her voice. She is a black CEO. She asks one clean question. Which policy? She sets her card on the desk and asks to log everything. One quiet call goes to operations, pull branch logs, and the customer record. A clock starts in our minds. 7 minutes. When it reaches 0, access is revoked, budgets freeze, and the manager is finished. Roll the footage. Morning light settles over a downtown bank lobby. Glass walls, polished counters, the soft hum of printers, and a coffee machine somewhere behind the line. People shuffle cards and emails on their phones. The camera rests on one teller pod where a conversation goes heavy and still. A teller leans back from her screen. Her voice is steady, trained, and a little bored. She tells the woman in the hoodie that she will not serve people like her. The sentence slices the room in half. Hands pause above keyboards. A chair wheel squeaks and then stops. The air feels thinner. Across the counter stands a black CEO. No entourage, no noise. She has a bank card in one hand and a driver license in the other. She does not raise her voice. She breathes once, as if counting off a beat only she can hear. Then she asks a single clean question. Which policy blocks a withdrawal from a business account with photo identification and verification on file? The teller does not answer. She glances over her shoulder toward the glass office. A shift manager arrives with a brisk walk and a tight smile that does not reach her eyes. She announces a review. She asks for the card. She keeps the card in her hand longer than required. She taps the counter with a single nail as if the sound itself were authority. The manager says the account shows a risk flag. She says a hold is needed until security can look closer. She asks the CEO to step aside and wait. The phrasing is tidy, the message is not. In the open room, people hear enough words to form a story that is not true. The CEO does not argue. She sets her license on the desk. She places her phone face down and speaks so the microphone will catch every word. She says to log everything. She asks again for the policy number and the clause. She adds that a standard withdrawal for a corporate operating account is routine and tracked. She asks why the branch is calling her a guest when the customer profile says owner. A trainee teller at the next pod shifts in place. Her name tag reads Elena. She has been studying the compliance binder for weeks. She knows the day counts on knowing your customer renewals. She knows this account cleared all checks this season. She looks at the manager, then on the screen, then back at the manager. She says softly that the file shows the owner verified. Her voice carries just enough for nearby customers to hear. The manager waves her off. She presses the intercom button and calls for a code that suggests a problem to a customer. The word problem hangs in the air like an alarm that only some people can hear. Not everyone understands the code, but everyone understands the tone. Two customers step back. One raises a phone. Another finds a better angle. The CEO remains still. She does not mirror the hostility. She does not feed it. She says again to log the interaction. She asks that the time be recorded and the names of the staff who handled the account. She asks that the card hold be noted as an action taken before any verification scan. A security guard approaches. He is polite and uncomfortable. He asks if there is an issue. The manager speaks for the teller and says there may be fraud. The word fraud lands louder than the word may. The guard looks at the CEO, at the card withheld in the manager's hand, and back at the growing cluster of faces. The CEO makes one call. Not a frantic call, a precise call. She asks operations to pull the branch activity log for this window and to surface the customer record with the owner field. She asks them to listen to the speaker so that evidence matches the reality in the room. She ends with the same line, log everything. Now, the lobby is two scenes at once. At the counter, a woman asks for the policy that justifies humiliation. In the background, customers form a quiet jury. Phones steady, eyes sharp. On the manager screen, a cursor hovers over a verification button that has not been pressed. On the intercom, air crackles. Somewhere in a back office, printers feed the daily reports that will either protect a standard or expose a habit. 7 minutes from this point, a decision will land with the weight of a system. For now, it is a face-off between noise and proof, between small power and quiet power. The clock is started. The camera settles into the rhythm of a weekday branch. A line forms and reforms. Keys tap. A printer breathes. The floor manager runs a hand along the edge of the counter as if tidying the air. She repeats that a review is needed and that the customer should step aside. The word review is used like a door that only opens one way. The black CEO stands where she is. Her tone does not rise. She asks to record names and timestamps and asks again for the policy clause that blocks a routine withdrawal with identification on file. She points to the monitor without touching it. The cursor still floats above a verification button that would clear the hold. The manager keeps the card in her hand in a way that reads as possession rather than procedure. Elena, the trainee teller, looks from the profile photo to the customer, then to the compliance checklist tucked under the counter. She has studied the calendar that governs Know Your Customer renewals. She knows this account passed review in the current quarter. She says, in a steady voice, that the record shows the owner verified. The room hears her. The room also hears the silence that follows. The manager reaches for the intercom and calls a code that frames the situation as a security concern. No specific risk is named. The word problem lands harder than the facts. A guard shows up, careful and respectful. He asks how he can help. The manager says there may be fraud and gestures toward the customer. The word may is soft. The word fraud is not. The CEO does not trade words. She asks for the incident to be logged as a card hold executed before verification. She notes the names of the staff who touched the file. She places her phone near the edge of the desk so the audio can capture the room without intruding on anyone. She calls operations on the speaker and asks them to pull the branch activity log for this time window, the teller workstation ID, and the audit trail for the customer record. She asks to surface the owner field and the history of access to the profile today. She says to log the call. On the line, an operations analyst confirms they are in the system. The analyst reads the last successful multi-factor check tied to this account. The analyst states that the profile owner is present in the branch today with a scheduled visit to private banking. The analyst checks access logs for the building and confirms a badge entry earlier this morning that matches the owner identity. The manager stiffens, then smiles as if this is still a training exercise. She says the signature looks off. She suggests a wait for a more senior approver. The CEO asks the simplest question in the room. Which policy requires a wait after identity has been verified? She leaves the question open in the air. No one answers. Customers watch without speaking. A woman in a navy blazer lowers her phone only to raise it again when the intercom pops. A man in a gray sweater glances at the wall poster that praises customer dignity. The poster looks louder than the manager. The guard shifts his weight and keeps his hands visible. He asks if the customer would like water. The CEO thanks him and says she will stay right here. The operations analyst brings in a supervisor. The supervisor asks permission to escalate to the director of operations and compliance. The call widens, but the voice of the CEO stays measured and narrow. She restates the facts. The account is a corporate operating account. The owner is present. The identification is valid. The trainee teller has confirmed the owner's field. The manager has overridden without a scan and has held the card. All of this is now on the record. In the glass office, a senior banker peers out and then looks away. The manager taps a pen. The pen stops. Her eyes go to the small camera at the corner of the ceiling, the one that sees everything and says nothing. The ceiling light reflects off the glass desk, sharp and cold. The room is a stage, and the script is now evidence. The supervisor on the call asks for a calm reset. The CEO agrees and asks for a simple sequence. Verify the identity, release the card, process the withdrawal, and update the incident log with corrective notes. She ends with the same 3 words that held the room from the start. Log everything. The bank lobby exhales, but only a little. The countdown lives in the silence, unseen and felt. Quiet power does not hurry. It arranges facts in a line and lets the line do the work. The branch tries to return to its routine, but the routine will not return. The manager stands square to the counter, one hand near the intercom button, the other still holding the card just a shade too long. Her posture says delay. Her words say policy. Her eyes say no. The room hears all 3. The black CEO answers with the same measured cadence. Verify identity. Release the card. Process the withdrawal. Record the incident. Each clause is plain. Each step matches the handbook that sits under the counter. Elena knows this. The guard likely knows this. The customers feel it even if they do not know the exact page numbers. Procedure is not a mystery when you live with fairness in mind. The manager plays a new move. She calls for a separate review in a glass office and asks the CEO to wait in a side area. The phrase side area lands like a borderline painted in air. The CEO does not cross it. She stays at the counter, where the microphones of the branch can hear, where the cameras can see, where the record is strongest. She says to log this instruction as a separation from service without cause. On the speaker, the operations analyst clears her throat. She has found the last completed identity check. She reads the time, the method, and the match. She states that no additional hold is needed under any policy tagged to retail or to business clients. She uses the calm tone of a person who spends her days inside systems that do not lie. The call remains open and steady, like a level placed on a table. Customers lean into the quiet. A man in a gray sweater steps one pace to the side to share the sightline with a woman in a navy blazer. Their phones do not swing. They record like witnesses on a bench. The guard shifts and asks if anyone feels unsafe. No one answers. The only danger in the room is to the story that is being told by small authority without support. The manager presses the intercom and calls a phrase that labels the customer as a possible imposter. The word possible is soft and swallowed. The room only hears imposters. The manager asks security to stand ready to escort. The step from delay to removal has been taken. The ramp is steep and the footing is poor. The CEO lets the air settle. She speaks to the phone in a steady voice. She asks operations to add the intercom call to the case record. She asks for a pull of all activity on the teller workstation since opening. She asks for a check of card custody since the card left the customer's hand. She asks that the access team review the badge log that shows an owner entry to the private banking floor earlier this morning. She ends with the line that anchors the series, log everything. A second voice joins the call. It is Jamal from Information Systems. He confirms that the badge entry matches the owner identity and that the calendar lists a standing appointment with a senior banker today. He asks one question that floats over the lobby like a quiet bell. Do you want proof of the system? The words are polite and final. The manager hears the wait. The customers hear the calm. Elena takes a breath and looks at the manager. Her hands are flat on the desk, palms down, as if bracing the truth so it does not slide away. She says the customer record shows the owner verified. She says the withdrawal amount falls within the normal range for a corporate operating account. She adds that the screen shows a verification button that remains untouched. She stops. She has said enough to tie the facts together. The manager tries a softer face. She says she is protecting the bank. She says signatures can be subjective. She says a wait will make everyone feel better. The CEO does not step into that fog. She returns to clarity. Which clause requires a wait after identity has been confirmed? Silence gathers again, not empty, but full of meaning. On the wall, a muted display shows a rotating set of messages about dignity and service. The words pass like clouds above a storm. The guard glances up, then back to the counter. He senses the turn before it happens. The turn is not loud. It is a change in pressure. It is the moment when proof outweighs posture. Operations asks for 30 seconds to sync with compliance leadership. The call does not click away. It stays in the room like another witness. The camera sits with the CEO as she rests one hand on the counter and the other near the phone. She is not performing. She is preserving. She is a standard at human scale. The clock that no one can see keeps walking forward. Not a race, a march. Each step measured. Each fact in place. The branch has a choice to make. It can lean into proof or into ego. Quiet power waits, and while it waits, it builds the record that will decide what happens next. The intercom crackles again. The manager repeats the label that casts doubt. The word sits heavy over the lobby. A few customers step back. A few steps closer. Phones are steady. The guard keeps his posture open. He is careful to be a witness, not a wall. The black CEO does not move from the counter. She keeps her voice calm and low. She asks for the exact name of the policy being invoked. She asks for the clause that allows a card to be held before any verification has been performed. She asks for the time and the names to be written into the incident record. Each sentence is simple. Each sentence is a rung on a ladder that leads out of fog. On the open call, the operations analyst confirms that system access is live. She notes the last identity check, the method, and the pass. She reads the owner field as confirmed. She adds that there is a scheduled meeting on the private banking floor for this account owner today. She is not dramatic. She is a clean ledger, read out loud. The manager shifts tactics. She suggests that the signature looks wrong. She suggests that a wait would be wise. She uses the word safety. The room knows what is happening. Safety is being asked to carry a story that the facts cannot carry. The CEO answers with the same 4 steps. Verify identity. Release the card. Process the withdrawal. Record the incident. She lets the silence do part of the work. The silence is not empty. It is full of the system that is about to speak. A new voice joins the call. He is the director of operations. The voice is steady and courteous. The director thanks the branch for keeping the line open. The director asks a single question. Do you want proof of the system? The sentence is soft and final at the same time. Jamal from Information Systems confirms that the building badge logs show an owner entry to private banking earlier this morning. He confirms a calendar entry with the senior banker for today. He confirms that the last device-based verification for this account succeeded. He asks for permission to surface the activity timeline to the branch displays. The guard glances up at the wall monitor. The manager does not answer. The director asks the operations analyst to project the essentials. The monitor near the queue flickers. A simple timeline appears. It shows a badge entry on the private banking floor, a calendar check, and a recent verification that passed. It shows a teller workstation ID and the moment when a hold was placed before any verification. The room is quiet in a new way, not uneasy, certain. Elena swallows and speaks clearly. She states that the customer record shows the owner verified and that the requested withdrawal sits in the normal range for this account. Her hands are still flat on the counter. She does not rush. She does not add color. She simply places truth where everyone can see it. The manager reaches for the intercom again. She starts to call the customer an imposter. The word stops in the air. The director speaks first. The director says that the record shows a confirmed owner in the branch. The director says that the card hold was executed ahead of policy. The director instructs the branch to release the card to the customer and to complete the transaction now. The manager hesitates. Her eyes move to the camera in the ceiling. Her hand tightens around the card. The room feels the pull of ego against evidence. The pull does not last. The director adds 3 sentences that settle the matter. The incident is now a compliance case. The branch incentive pool is paused pending review. All actions at this counter are to be logged in detail. The guard steps 1 pace back and rests his hands at his sides. The phones in the line do not move. The customers make space with their bodies and with their quiet. The teller who started the encounter looks down at the screen and waits for the next instruction. Elena watches the manager, then looks back to the CEO with a small nod that says the line has held. The CEO does not gloat. She is here for standards, not for spectacle. She speaks for the record. She confirms that identity is verified, that the card will be returned, that the withdrawal will be processed, and that the incident log will include the sequence of events. She asks the director to keep the call open until completion. She ends with the same anchor she has used since the first minute. Log everything. The lobby exhales, not loudly. With the relief of gravity restored, procedure is not a weapon today. It is a path. And the path leads forward, away from small power and toward the clean weight of proof. The teller returns the card to the counter as the director instructs. The plastic makes a small sound on the glass that feels louder than the intercom ever did. The room settles but does not relax. Procedure is moving again, and with it comes the part that matters most, the record. The black CEO places her palm lightly beside the card. She has not taken it yet. She asks for the steps to be spoken for in the case file. Identity confirmed, card released, withdrawal to be processed, incident log to capture the full sequence. The director agrees. The operations analyst reads from the system in a voice that has no drama and no doubt. Jamal from Information Systems adds the timeline. He notes the first moment the profile was opened at this workstation. He notes that a hold flag was placed before any verification scan. He notes that the owner field was visible and matched the customer at the counter. He notes that a badge entry to the private banking floor earlier that morning tied to the same owner's identity. He asks if the branch would like a screen share to the back office display for full clarity. The director says yes. The feed lights up in the glass room. Elena keeps her hands flat on the desk and speaks so the microphone can hear. She confirms that the training binder lists a clean sequence for cases like this. Verify, release, process, record. She states that the amount requested falls within routine activity for a corporate operating account. Her tone is steady. She uses simple words that leave no place to hide. The manager clears her throat and tries to frame the delay as caution. She says signatures can be subjective. She says she was acting to protect the bank. The words have been used so often in so many rooms that they almost sound like policy. They are not policy, they are a habit. The analyst replies with calm care. Policy requires verification before a hold, not the other way around. The manager watches the ceiling camera as if it might blink. The guard stands easy but alert. He has seen scenes like this deflate when pride gives way to proof. He has also seen them burn hotter when ego digs a trench. Today, the room leans toward proof, not because anyone shouted, but because the system is being asked to speak about itself in daylight. The director asks for one more step. Pull the audio from the intercom for the time window of this encounter. Jamal confirms. A soft playback fills the ceiling speakers. The first call from the manager uses a code that labels the customer as a problem. The second call uses a phrase that marks the customer as a possible imposter. The third announces a hold to security without any mention of a verification step. The words arrive one after the other like pebbles into water. Each ripple touches the next. The CEO finally takes the card. She does not leave. She asks for the withdrawal to be completed at the same counter where the delay began. She asks for the director to remain on the line until the transaction posts. She asks for the incident to capture the order of events, the codes used, the moment the hold was applied, and the identity checks that were skipped. She ends with the same calm instruction that framed the morning. Log everything. The teller processes the transaction. The receipt prints with its dry rhythm. The analyst confirms that the account reflects the movement. The director thanks the customer by name and confirms that the call will stay open while the compliance case is built. The voice is warm but formal, like a hand that steadies a scale. The manager softens her posture and offers a careful apology that does not name the harm. The room hears the gap. The gap is the point. This was never about a slow printer or a fussy signature. This was about a small gate raised against a person who owns the building that houses the gate. That is why the record matters more than tone. Elena takes a small step forward. She asks permission to add a note to the incident log. The director says yes. Elena states that she flagged the owner verified before any hold was appropriate and that her guidance was overridden. She speaks with respect and with clarity. She places her name beside the truth so it does not float away. The director breathes in and then speaks with final care. The branch will pause incentive distributions pending a full review. The manager role will be evaluated by human resources and by compliance for adherence to standards. System access for the manager will be adjusted while this review takes place. The words are measured and quiet. They do not sting, they simply land. The lobby feels the shift. Transactions resume. The coffee machine hums again. The phones are lower. The guard nods once, then stays where he is, a calm witness to the moment a culture chose process over posture. The black CEO pockets her card and her receipt. She does not rush the exit. Quiet power leaves the stage the way it entered, with proof, with patience, and with a line that does not waver. Log everything. The line moves again, but the room still holds a quiet edge. The director stays on the call. The teller breathes easier and checks the screen. The receipt sits warm on the glass. The guard eases back a step and keeps the sight line open. The manager stands in place as if the floor were a narrow ledge. The black CEO does not leave. She is not here only for cash. She is here for a standard that outlives the moment. She asks operations to lock the case file so no edits can slip in without a name attached. She asks that the raw intercom audio be preserved, not just the transcript. She asks that camera angles from the lobby and the glass office be clipped and tagged to the same incident number. Her voice is even. The list is clear. The call is still on speaker, so the list becomes the room. Jamal from Information Systems answers in the calm way of a person who knows where every wire runs. He confirms the intercom clips are saved. He confirms the lobby camera feed and the office feed are writing to the archive. He notes that the workstation log shows a hold placed before verification and that the owner field was visible at that moment. He asks a simple question that feels like a hand on a light switch. Would you like proof on the system displayed to the branch again? The director says yes. The monitor wakes, the timeline returns. Cleaner now, as if the room had been washed. Elena watches the sequence on the screen and says what everyone can see. The process that protects customers was not followed. The process is simple. Verify, release, process, record. She does not look at the manager when she speaks. She looks at the handbook under the counter, a small book that has carried more weight in this scene than any loud instruction. The manager tries one more angle. She says the posture of the customer felt wrong. She says the hoodie looked out of place for a business account owner. The words fall flat on a tile floor of facts. The director speaks with care. Dress is not a policy. A feeling is not a control. A hold before identity is not permitted. The manager presses her lips together and says nothing more. The CEO asks for simple, remedial steps that any fair system can carry. She asks for a retraction in front of house staff on the order of operations. She asks for a refresh on risk language so that codes are not used as labels to humiliate. She asks for a review of card custody so that no one holds a customer card as a form of soft power. She adds one last point that bends the air back into shape. Promote the people who protected the standard today. Phones in the line lower. The room hears what repair can sound like when it is not coded in apology without action. The director agrees to each step and assigns owners on the call. Operations will update the quick guide. Compliance will revise the risk codes and add a plain language line to each entry. Human Resources will schedule a research session for this branch and nearby branches. Information Systems will add a prompt on the teller screen that reminds staff to verify before any hold. Elena asks if she may add a note to the log. She writes that her voiced owner verified and that her guidance was overridden. She writes that the customer remained calm, asked for policy, and asked the branch to record every step. She writes that the intercom language escalated the situation without new facts. She signs her name. The signature is not decoration, it is courage on paper. The guard glances at the wall poster about dignity and service. For the first time today, the words match the room. He nods to the CEO and to the teller and rests his hands at his sides. He has not drawn a line today. He has held space for the right line to be drawn. The CEO thanks the director for staying on the call. She asks for the branch to receive a brief at close of business that recaps the facts and the fixes. She asks that the case remain open until the corrective actions are complete. She ends with the phrase that has been the spine of the morning. Log everything. The director answers with a promise that is simple and testable. The brief will go out before the doors lock. The case will remain open until every step is finished. The timeline on the screen pauses on the moment that mattered most, the hold before verification. The room has heard the lesson. The system has written it down. Quiet power does not rush away. It makes sure the next person never has to ask for the same proof. The lobby holds a careful quiet. The teller clears the screen of the last transaction and folds her hands. The director remains on the call. Operations and information systems stay present like a steady hum that keeps the lights on. The branch has moved from confusion to clarity. There is one step left that everyone can feel, but no one is naming out loud. The black CEO stands with her card in her pocket and her receipt tucked away. She is not rushed. She is exact. She asks whether system access for the manager has been reviewed. She asks whether the branch incentive program will be paused while training and recertification take place. She asks whether the incident has been assigned a case number and an owner who will carry it to completion. Her tone is level. Her words are the shape of a checklist you can hear. The director answers with measured calm. Human Resources has joined the line in silent mode. Compliance is online and listening. Information Systems will review user permissions for the manager position in the branch. Operations will freeze the incentive pool for this location pending recertification. The case has an owner inside compliance and a timeline that will be sent to the branch before close of business. Each sentence lands like a seal on an envelope. Jamal speaks next. He has prepared a short on-screen view that shows the teller workstation activity and the order of events. He notes the moment the manager placed a hold before any verification scan. He notes the owner field visible on the profile. He notes the branch intercom calls that labeled the customer while bypassing the clear path of verify then serve. He asks if the director would like this view shared to the back office monitor again. The director says yes in a voice that stays calm and absolute. The monitor in the glass office wakes. A simple timeline appears. It is not dramatic, it is honest. Badge entry to the private banking floor in the morning. Calendar entry for a meeting with a senior banker. Device verification passed. Teller workstation opens the profile. Card held before verification. Intercom calls with escalating labels. Then the steady return to process when the call with operations stayed open and the record began to speak. Elena stands a touch taller. She sees the exact path she tried to defend, now made visible to the whole room. She does not look at the manager. She looks at the handbook and at the customers who waited with patience and with phones that did not shake. She takes a slow breath and rests her hands on the counter again. She has done her part. The system is doing the rest. The manager watches the screen as if it might blink a different truth. Her mouth opens and closes without words. The director addresses her with care. The director says that the branch will transfer her duties pending review. The director says that access will be adjusted today while the case is active. The director says that Human Resources will contact her with next steps. The phrases are calm and final. There is no heat. There is only weight. The guard does not move forward. He does not need to. This is not a removal by force. This is the quiet turn of a lock inside a system that exists to keep standards higher than mood. Customers hold their place. A woman in a navy blazer lowers her phone and lets out a breath. A man in a gray sweater nods once at no one in particular. The room is not hungry for punishment. The The room is hungry for fairness that can be measured. The black CEO speaks for the record. She asks that the branch send the recap memo by day end and copy operations, compliance, and human resources. She asks that the training schedule for the front of the house be posted where staff can see it and customers can ask about it. She asks that a small card with the verify release process record sequence be placed at each teller pod. She ends with the line that has carried the morning. Log everything. Operations confirms the memo will go out. Compliance confirms the training calendar will be set. Human resources confirms receipt of the case and the change in access for the manager role. Information systems confirms the account owner verification and the timeline archive. Jamal thanks Elena by name for speaking to the facts in the moment. The director echoes the thanks and adds that Elena will be recommended for a standard role at the branch. The manager sets the pen down. The pen clicks on the glass like a pebble against a window. She nods once. She does not look up. She steps back from the counter. The teller takes a breath she had been holding. The guard relaxes his shoulders without letting the space collapse. The lobby resumes a normal rhythm that does not feel like the old normal. It is cleaner. The CEO does not make a speech. She places a simple request with the director before the call ends. Share the outcome with the community partners who care about fair access to banking. Tie the incentive program to measurable service standards, not only to volume. Lift the people who kept the process clean today. The director agrees. The list becomes the plan. The call concludes with a quiet thank you and the promise of a written record delivered before the doors lock. The room does not cheer. It does not need to. A small culture has shifted by inches that feel like miles. The camera held on the counter where a card was held, like a lever of small power, and then returned to a hand that refused to be moved by noise. Quiet power stands for a moment longer, then turns. The standard remains in the air like clear light. The branch settles into a new rhythm that feels earned. The call line stays open. The director speaks with the steady cadence of a person who knows that clarity is a kind of shelter. Operations confirms that a case owner is assigned. Compliance confirms that the archive has the full set of logs, including the intercom audio and the workstation trail. Information systems confirm that the activity timeline is preserved with timestamps and user actions. Human resources stays on the line in quiet mode, present but not performative. The black CEO remains at the counter. She is not an audience to her own dignity. She is a custodian of it. She asks that a brief go to the branch team before doors close. In plain language, free of blame but packed with facts. She asks that the customer-facing poster on dignity and service be updated so it includes the simple sequence that saved the morning. Verify, release, process, record. She asks that every teller pod receive a small card with that sequence in large letters that a tired person can follow on a long day. The director answers, the brief will go out, the poster will be revised, the cards will be printed and delivered. Operations volunteers to craft a one-page reminder that spells the order of operations in simple steps. Compliance will add a line to each risk code description that forbids using the code as a label to shame. Information systems will add a nudge on screens to complete identity checks before any hold. The room listens to tangible work take shape. Elena stands at ease, not triumphant, not small. She asks if she may log a final note. She writes that she confirmed the owner field and that the process should have followed. She writes that the intercom language was used to escalate, not to protect. She writes that the customer asked for policy by name and asked for every step to be logged. She signs with care. The act is not theater, it is a service to the next person who walks through the door. The manager remains at the edge of the counter, hands folded, eyes on the floor. Human resources speak at last, calm and measured. While the review is active, system access for the manager role will be adjusted. Duties will be reassigned. A meeting will be scheduled to walk through the record, the policy sequence, and the corrective actions. The voice does not accuse, it balances a scale that tilts in the wrong direction and sets it level. The guard does not shadow anyone. He stands in his place and keeps a path clear for customers. He has served the scene by not becoming a scene. He nods once to the CEO, then to Elena, then to no one at all. The gesture is a quiet thank you that belongs to the whole room. The black CEO requests one more action. She asks operations to send a copy of the incident brief to community partners who care about equal access to financial services. She asks that the branch schedule include a short listening session with staff and with regular customers, so the lesson becomes culture and not just a story. She asks that a short note go to information systems to explore a prompt that invites staff to choose proof over posture when a decision point feels tense. Jamal takes that last idea and shapes it in real time. A small modal can ask one question before a hold is placed. Has identity been verified? If the answer is no, the system can block the hold and present the verify path. He speaks softly, almost off to the side, and yet the room feels an inner hinge settle into place. The teller who first touched the case asks if she may add a line to the record. She writes that hesitation and habit can blur together unless a system asks the right question at the right moment. She writes that today the system and the people aligned. She signs her name with the plain grace of someone who intends to do better and now has a map. The director checks with each group. Operations, ready. Compliance, ready. Information systems, ready. Human resources, ready. The branch is not perfect. No branch is. But today, it has chosen a path that can be walked again tomorrow, and that is how standards survive. The CEO thanks the room, not with a speech, but with a sentence that has become a song beneath the day. She says she is here for standards. She asks the director to keep the case open until the last fix is in place and the memo is delivered. She does not reach for credit. She reaches for continuity. The lobby resumes its flow, but this time the flow carries a shape you can feel. The card that was once a lever of small control is now only a card. The counter is a desk again. The ceiling camera is a witness, not a threat. The poster about dignity reads like an agreement, not a decoration. And the log sits like a spine that holds the body upright, word by word, action by action, proof by proof. The branch does not feel rushed, it feels deliberate. Air moves with purpose, not with panic. The director stays on the line, operations and compliance remain present. Information systems listen for what the record will ask next. Human resources hold steady in quiet mode. The lobby is a kind of courtroom without a gavel, where the evidence is not a speech, but a sequence. The black CEO rests one hand on the counter. She asks that the activity view remain on the monitor in the glass office until the brief is sent. She asks that the teller workstation log be exported to the case file with readable labels, so that any person can follow the story without a glossary. She asks that the intercom clips be transcribed in plain language and time-stamped to the second. She asks for the badge entries and the calendar appointment to sit on the same page as the teller actions. Her voice is even. The map is clear. Jamal confirms each step with calm detail. He says the export is complete. He says the view in the glass office mirrors the archive. He says the branch can scroll the timeline, but edits are locked. He says the badges and the calendar entries have been paired with the customer record. Nothing sounds grand, everything sounds exact. Elena speaks softly, but the room carries her words. She notes that the verify step was skipped before a hold was applied. She notes that staff language on the intercom escalated without new facts. She notes that a new prompt on the workstation would have prevented the sequence from breaking. She is not pointing a finger, she is pointing at a path. The manager stands near the counter with hands folded. The posture reads, careful, not contrite. The director addresses the branch with an even tone. The case owner in compliance will conduct interviews, review the timeline, and produce findings that tie each decision to policy. During that time, duties for the manager role will be reassigned. Access will be limited to read-only where appropriate. Incentives for the branch will remain paused until recertification is done and the fixes are in place. The phrases do not attack, they anchor. The guard remains a statue with a heartbeat. He watches the flow of customers, keeps the space open, and lets the record work. A woman in a navy blazer pockets her phone and stays to watch, not for drama, but for closure. A man in a gray sweater steps aside to give a clear view to those behind him. The lobby seems to know that quiet fairness is history too, and worth a minute of a morning. The black CEO asks for one more layer of clarity. She asks that the handbook page for the front of the house be updated with the sequence that saved the day. Verify, release, process, record. She asks that a short paragraph explain that risk codes are tools for protection, not labels for people. She asks that a reminder sit at the top of the page that says, dress is not policy and a feeling is not a control. She asks that the branch schedule a listening circle next week, so staff can speak to habit and to pressure and to what they need when the room feels tense. Operations accepts the work and assigns names to tasks. Compliance notes the language for the handbook. Information systems take the prompt project and the screen nudges. Human resources schedules recertification with a note to include role play for calm verification under pressure. The director confirms that a memo with these points will be delivered before the doors lock. Elena thanks the CEO for holding the line without raising her voice. The CEO nods once and says, "She is here for standards." She asks the analyst to timestamp that sentence in the case file. She asks that any future training may use this clip so new staff can see what quiet power looks like when the room leans the wrong way. The intercom plays back a short segment, again at low volume. The code words that frame the customer as a problem do not sound large anymore. They sound thin beside the timeline that sits on the wall. The branch has a mirror now, and in that mirror is a simple picture. A hold placed before a verification, a refusal dressed as caution, a correction dressed as procedure, a culture moving by inches towards something more stable than habit. The director asks the teller to finish the final notations. The receipt is already printed, the record is the product now. The analyst confirms the archive is complete and backed up. The monitor in the glass office goes from bright to calm, but remains on. The case number rests at the top of the screen, like a small flag no one needs to salute to respect. The black CEO steps back from the counter and lets the room breathe. She has asked for what mattered. She has kept it measurable. She has made space for people to learn without making a spectacle out of a person. She thanks the team on the call and repeats the spine of the day. Log everything. The words do not echo. They settle the way a foundation settles under a building that will stand for a long time. The call line holds steady. The branch is calm the way a harbor is calm after a storm has passed. The director speaks with care. Operations are present. Compliance is present. Information systems are present. Human resources is listening. The lobby keeps its quiet shape. People know they are seeing a standard being built in real time. The black CEO remains at the counter. She is not chasing victory, she is finishing work. She asks for the final recap to be spoken into the record, so any person who hears this later can follow without a guide. Identity verified, card returned, withdrawal processed, intercom language preserved, workstation activity preserved, badge entries and calendar entries paired. She pauses. She adds the part that turns a lesson into protection. Training scheduled, access reviewed. Incentives paused until recertification. The words are simple and exact. The director repeats the points into the open line. Each one becomes a line in the case file. Jamal adds a last view. The timeline shows the order as it was lived, a hold before verification, a code that labeled a person without cause, a quiet request for policy, a call that opened the system, a return to procedure. The screen in the glass office holds on the moment the cursor hovered over the verification button and did not move. No one says a speech. The image is enough. Elena stands with her hands still on the counter. She speaks once. She says she is willing to assist with the training session and to share what she has learned about staying calm while pushing for the right step. The director thanks her and says her name will be in the memo as a person to be promoted into a standards role. It is not a trophy. It is a responsibility acknowledged in daylight. The manager looks at the floor and then at the monitor. Human Resources joins with a voice that is steady and kind. The duties of the manager role will be reassigned while the review is active. Access will be read only where needed. A meeting will be scheduled to walk through the record, the policy, and the gaps. The voice does not search for blame. The voice keeps the branch inside the rails of the process. The guard surveys the lobby with the same even care he brought to the tense minutes. He asks if anyone needs assistance. A woman in a navy blazer shakes her head and offers a small nod toward the counter. A man in a gray sweater pockets his phone and steps away to let the next customer move forward. Routine does not erase what happened. Routine is how the branch will prove that the lesson stuck. The black CEO asks for one more control. She asks for a prompt to appear on teller screens when a hold is attempted without a completed identity check. The prompt should ask if identity has been verified and should block the hold if the answer is no. Jamal says the team can prototype by the end of the week and pilot in a small set of branches. The director approves the path. A small line of code can carry a large amount of dignity. Compliance adds a concise note. Risk codes will be rewritten in plain language with examples of proper use and examples of misuse. There will be a clear reminder that codes protect services and never label a person. Operations agrees to include that line on a quick guide placed at each workstation. The teller who began the day nods and says that simple reminders help when the lobby is loud and the clock is unforgiving. The director asks the CEO if there is anything else before the call closes. The CEO answers with the same calm that has guided the morning. Share the memo with community partners who care about fair access. Tie branch incentives to measurable standards of service, not only to volume. Promote people who defend the process when it is hard. Then she gives the line that makes the room stand up a little straighter. She says she is here for standards. The call edges toward its end. The work is not dramatic now, it is administrative and exact. The teller finishes the final entries. The analyst confirms the archive is locked. The monitor in the glass office dims but stays on the timeline. The case number sits at the top, like a marker on a map. The manager steps back from the counter and waits for human resources to follow up. The guard resumes his careful watch of the door and the line. The black CEO picks up her card and her receipt. She thanks Elena by name. She thanks the guard for steady presence. She thanks operations and compliance and information systems and human resources for speaking with facts instead of feelings. She steps back from the counter and lets the lobby breathe. Quiet power does not rush. Quiet power leaves a clean trail. Before she turns, she gives one more instruction that is both small and large. Include a short clip of this moment in the new hire training. Not the confrontation, the reset. The part where the room chose procedure over posture. The director says yes, the answer carries no. Drama, only certainty. The scene does not end with applause. It ends on a record that can be used tomorrow. The lobby returns to its pace. The poster on the wall feels honest now. The ceiling camera feels like a witness again. The case file sits like a spine that will hold the next morning up, and the words that frame the day settle into the building itself. Log everything. The call holds steady in the air. The branch is quiet in the way a courtroom grows quiet when the jury returns. Operations are present. Compliance is present. Information systems are present. Human resources listens. The lobby waits without moving. A decision is about to take its shape. The black CEO stands at the counter. Her hands are easy at her sides. Her voice is level. She repeats the record as it now stands. Identity confirmed. Card returned. Withdrawal processed. Intercom audio preserved. Workstation activity preserved. Badge entry and calendar entry paired with the customer record. Then she draws the line the day has been walking toward. A verdict in 3 clear moves. First move, terminate access for the manager while the review is active. Not a scene, a system change. Information systems confirms that the manager profile has been set to read only and that branch authority routes to the senior banker for now. Human resources notes the change and schedules a meeting to walk the record and the policy. The manager hears this with the room as witness. No door closes, a gate resets to safety. Second move, freeze incentives for the branch until staff complete recertification and the fixes are in place. Operations confirms the pause. Compliance adds that recertification will include the plain sequence that protects everyone. Verify and release and process and record. Risk codes will be rewritten in everyday language with examples of proper use and improper use. The teller who began the day nods with relief. The truth is no longer floating. It has anchors. Third move, log everything. The words are simple and final. The analyst confirms that the archive is locked and mirrored to backup. The intercom clips are saved with time marks. The timeline from the glass office display matches the archive. The case file now holds the shape of what happened and the shape of what will change because of it. Proof now has a home. The director speaks with care. The verdict is accepted and placed into the record. Duties for the manager role are reassigned. Training is scheduled. The memo will go to staff and to community partners who care about fair access before doors close today. The director thanks the team for steady work under pressure. Thanks is not a bow, they are receipts. Elena takes one breath and steps half a pace forward. She is not loud, she is exact. She confirms that her flagged owner verified and that her guidance was overridden. She confirms that the new prompt at the workstation would have stopped the misuse of a hold. The director states that Elena will move into a standards lead path at this branch. The room does not clap, the room accepts a better order. The manager lowers her eyes. She says she acted from caution. The words land without force. The record sits beside them like a quiet mountain. Human resources address her in a tone that is calm and decent. There will be a meeting. There will be a review. There will be a chance to learn or to move on. Today is not about ruin. It is about repair. The guard keeps the space open with a practiced stillness. He is a reminder that protection can be calm. The customers shift back into their day. A woman in a navy blazer sends a note to her calendar. A man in a gray sweater folds his receipt and slips it into a pocket. Phones lower. Shoulders loosen. Routine returns with a steadier spine. The black CEO thanks each group by name. Operations for the path. Compliance for the mirror. Information systems for the timeline and the lock. Human resources for the steady line through change. She thanks Elena for speaking the truth in the moment when it mattered. She ends without flourishing. She says she is here for standards. She asks that the training clip focus on the reset, not the conflict, so new staff can learn the posture and the steps. The director agrees. The screen in the glass office holds the moment that taught the lesson. A hold placed before verification, a refusal wrapped in habit. A correction made with procedure and not with volume. The verdict is not a strike of thunder, it is a sequence in clear daylight. The branch exhales, not with triumph, with alignment. A system that once dragged its feet now walks forward. The case file rests like a backbone. The poster on the wall reads true. The ceiling camera watches and says nothing. The counter is only a counter again. The day moves on, but not the same. The lesson will outlast the morning because the lesson has been written down. Log everything. The lobby settles into a steady hum. Not silence, no noise. The kind of sound a place makes when work is finally aligned with its purpose. The director remains on the line a little longer. Operations and compliance and information systems and human resources hold their places. A record has been made. Now comes the care that makes a record matter past today. The Black CEO asks for a simple path that turns a moment into policy. She asks that the branch receive a closing memo in plain language. She asks that the memo travel to nearby branches and to community partners who measure fair access. She asks for a short staff huddle at the end of day to walk the sequence that carried the room from tension to clarity. Verify, release, process, record. 4 steps that fit in one breath and guide a full career. Operations accepts and assigns names. Compliance drafts a clean paragraph that defines risk codes as tools for protection and not labels for people. Information systems prepare a prompt that blocks a hold when identity has not been verified. Human resources sets a recertification day and adds a scenario run that asks staff to keep calm while the lobby is busy and the clock is unkind. No fanfare, clear tasks. Elena stands with a stillness that is full of relief. The director confirms her move into a standard lead path. Not a crown, a responsibility. She will mentor the front of house staff on the order of work that protects dignity without slowing service. Jamal will receive a quality award for surfacing proof on system and for building the prompt that turns intention into behavior at the exact moment of decision. The teller who began the day will join a refresher and contribute a line to the quick guide about speaking early when the process is about to drift. The Black CEO asks for one more shape of repair. A small grant to a community banking partner that educates customers on rights and on the language of service. A listening circle next week in the branch with staff and with regular customers. The goal is not to blame. The goal is to practice plain words that keep heat low and standards high. The director agrees. The branch will host. The door will be open. The poster on the wall will not just promise dignity, it will invite conversation about what dignity looks like at a window and at a desk. Human resources speak with calm care. Duties for the manager role will be reassigned while the review proceeds. A meeting will be set to walk through the record, the policy, and the gap between them. This is the work of repair, to name what happened without heat, to map what happens next with steps that can be checked. The room receives this without cheer and without pushback. It is the right weight. Customers begin to move on with their day. A woman in a navy blazer tucks her phone away and gives a small nod toward the counter. A man in a gray sweater lifts his coffee and steps into the light by the door. The guard remains steady. He is a quiet hinge that helps the room swing toward fairness. When the door opens and closes now, it does not feel like a barrier, it feels like part of a path. The director reads the closing lines into the record. The memo goes out before close. The case remains open until every fix is in place. The timeline in the glass office will be available for a training clip focused on the reset, not the conflict. The handbook page will be updated, the workstation prompt will be piloted, incentives will be tied to measurable service standards and not only to volume. These are not slogans. They are levers that move behavior without shouting. The Black CEO thanks the room and keeps it simple. She says she is here for standards. She asks that the branch post the verified release process record card at every teller pod in large print. She asks that the listening circle invite honest talk about habit and pressure and the support staff need when a scene tilts. She asks that Elena and Jamal be recognized in a staff note that praises action tied to policy rather than style. Operations confirm each point. Compliance adds a final note. The intercom language will be reviewed so that codes cannot be used as a way to humiliate. Information systems confirm the archive is locked and mirrored. Human resources confirms the training schedule and the reassignment plan. The pieces click into place with the quiet comfort of a well-made lock. The lobby does not erupt. It breathes. The counter is only a counter again. The ceiling camera is a witness again. The poster on the wall reads like a promise that will be kept because the steps are written down where hands can reach them. The card that was held too long now rests in the pocket of a customer who never raised her voice and never lowered her standard. The black CEO steps back, gives a single nod to the people who kept the room steady, and turns toward the door. Her last line for the record is the first line of real accountability. Log everything. The words settle into the building like a beam that will hold the next storm. The day can end now. The work will not. The lobby returns to a human pace. Footsteps. Low voices. The soft breath of a printer that has work to do and no need to be seen. The screen in the glass office holds the quiet frame of a timeline. The case file is closed to edits and open to learning. The branch is not the same room that began this morning. The black CEO stands a moment longer at the counter. She does not deliver a speech. She does not seek a scene. She thanks the teller who stayed steady. She thanks the guard who kept space clear. She thanks Elena for speaking to policy when it mattered. She thanks Jamal for letting the system speak for itself. She thanks the director and the teams for answering with steps, not with style. Then she says the one line that explains the day. She is here for standards. Operations reads the final notes into the air. The memo will reach staff before the doors lock. The same memo will travel to nearby branches and to community partners who measure fair access with care. Compliance will carry the case through interviews and findings. Information systems will run the pilot that asks a simple question before a hold is placed. Has identity been verified? Human resources will manage access changes and schedule recertification. The work is not dramatic. It is exact. Elena receives her next step without fanfare, a standard lead path at this branch. She will help the front of house staff hold the clean order that protects every person who walks to a counter. Verify, release, process, record. 4 short words, plain as wood grain, strong enough to hold weight. Jamal receives a quiet award for proof of the system and for the nudge that turns intention into behavior at the right second. The teller who began the day adds a single sentence to the quick guide that lives under the counter. Speak early when the process starts to drift. The manager does not vanish. Human resources will meet with her, review the record, and walk the policy. There is room to repair. There is room to move on. The verdict today was not a spectacle. It was a sequence that restored a line everyone can see. The branch will be better because the truth did not have to shout. The poster on the wall is already out of date in a good way. It will be updated. It will carry the sequence that saved the morning. It will carry a plain reminder that risk codes protect services and never label people. It will carry a line that dress is not policy and a feeling is not a control. The teller pods will receive a small card with the same sequence in large print. The ceiling camera will remain a witness, not a weapon. The black CEO asks for one more piece of care before she leaves. A short listening circle next week in this lobby, open to staff and to regular customers. The goal is not to blame. The goal is to practice the words that keep heat low and standards high when pressure leans on the room. Operations agrees, the branch will host, chairs will form a simple ring. A bank will act like a public square for 1 hour that can change a culture for a long time. She turns toward the door. The guard nods. Elena exhales. Phones tuck away. The door opens in daylight that looks cleaner than when it came in. The city outside goes on with its pace, unaware that a small hinge inside this branch now swings truer. Voiceover closes the chapter the way it began. Quiet power does not chase victory. Quiet power leaves a trail the next person can follow. If you value standards held in daylight, stay with the channel. Share this with someone who works a counter, who runs a floor, who writes a rule. Then remember the sentence that gave this day its spine. Log everything,